I do want to set the record straight on a few things that the news media seem not to understand and to answer your questions as best I can.
It's more than a year now since the noose hanging incident sparked trouble in Jena, Louisiana, ultimately leading to the arrest of 6 black teenagers. While racism was the most potent ingredient in the mix, it was a failure by the adult authorities that produced this travesty. Welcome to Collateral.
This case has been portrayed by the news media as being about race, but this case is not and never has been about race.
The violence in Jena grew out of the unwillingness of the local authorities to confront the demons of the past when they surfaced hanging from the white tree last September. Now, not all symbols would have needed to have been confronted, but nooses are different than a Southern flag, for instance. Unlike a flag, nooses connote a direct threat, and everything that followed sprung from the insistence of the authorities that nooses didn't mean anything. The message to the black students was clear. Accept that the incident wasn't racially motivated. Accept that it was a prank. Stop being angry. This was the precise message District Attorney Reed Walters sent when he went to speak with the students at a school assembly days later. By his own admission, Walters was occupied with other matters and he was annoyed by the trouble at the school. He went there to bolster the official interpretation of events, and he did so by saying, quote, "I can end your lives with the stroke of a pen." Nominally, Walters said this to all of the students, but everyone knew that he was really addressing the protesting black students. And most people also understood that when Walters spoke those words, it wasn't just him speaking. It was also the voice of centuries-old white racism speaking. "Watch what you do, boys, or we'll put you back into line," it said. Thus, the black students' entirely reasonable interpretation of a vile act was denied by the authorities. Reed Walters and his white masters weren't going to acknowledge the return of some ugly, repressed material just because some black students at a high school wanted them to. Walters' lame excuse was that he couldn't find a statute under which to charge the noose hangers. Yet he did have sufficient creativity to describe the sneakers of the Jena6 as deadly weapons, enabling him to charge them with second-degree murder.
When he held that pen up to the jury, he held it up to those kids. He wrote down aggravated battery, attempted murder. That's a weapon.
And so, since the authorities failed to deal with this properly, eventually all sorts of violence broke out. Once the criminal justice system got involved, predictably the black students got the worst of it. They're still getting the worst of it. But this time, they're not going quietly.
Jena is not the beginning, but Jena has crossed the line.
What Jena may spark is a long overdue movement to address the unfairness of the U.S. criminal justice system. Jena, Louisiana is hardly the only place where blacks and minorities don't get a fair shake. The urban centers of the northern U.S. are just as guilty of bias. We can't let our anger at the injustice in a small southern town obscure the larger problems with the system. Here's just one clear example from a recent essay on the subject. According to the Justice Department, blacks are more than 3 times more likely than whites to get their car searched when pulled over, and more than twice as likely to get arrested. They're also more than 5 times as likely to go to jail, and their jail sentences are 20% longer. There is no good reason for this, but there is a reason. Even in 2007, there's still a feeling among some authority figures that the U.S. is a white country that needs protecting against blacks and other minorities. But the U.S. is not a white country, and it shouldn't be. The idea that it is a white country has to be overcome, and that's what sends fear into the hearts of racists everywhere. Until we accept that the United States is not and should not be a white country, the justice system is going to continue to produce results that perpetuate the fallacy that minorities are the problem. And until we hold prosecutors like Reed Walters accountable for their misconduct by stripping licenses and bringing charges when they abuse their power, the system will stay broken. We hope to see you on October 23rd when we return from a break.
Peacefully to go out in this world because Jena is tagged to their name. Their education is stifled. This is just the beginning. Reed Walters and this justice system need to take a step back and say, Justice must prevail. We cannot